Well, good morning and welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe. Let's take a look at the highlights first.
And first of all, this particular morning, Fred, questions linger after last minute's postponement of the planned launch of Kenya's digital ID platform, dubbed the Maisha Number, initially slated for today.
Yes, elsewhere, Kenya's Vincent Mutai outsprints compatriot Shadrach Kimining to win the 2023 Cardiff Half Marathon in a time of 1 hour and 35 seconds. Congratulations.
And from matters of sports, authorities in Spain declared days of mourning after fire at 3 nightclubs killed at least 13 people in the southeastern Spanish city of Murcia.
It is October 2nd, 2023, 275th day of the year. It is exactly 90 days.
Hey.
Then we turn to 2024.
Wow.
Wow. Time does move fast. Welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe. My name is Freddy Ndimuli. The question today we are asking is, in your opinion, which government ministry has performed the best so far? In your opinion, which government ministry has performed the best so far? You can continue interacting with us on social media at TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. Let's now get the day's diary before we take a look at the dailies.
In your ringita, by the way. And even as you're taking the day's diary, Fred, yesterday was the day for the elderly, and I would like to take this opportunity to remember you.
Nice one. You know, I'd forgotten the fact that Man United did not perform as expected.
We're talking about.
And I promised to be nice to you. But anyway, it's good.
I'm lucky Limuki is not here so that the banter can be twice. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Where is she, by the way?
We'll ask her. We'll ask her.
Well, she's a bit under the weather, maybe.
I saw on Twitter she was eating a lot of cuckoos, so we'll ask her all that. Oh, yes. Okay. But I definitely remember you as an old person out here.
Okay. And I'll take that one in stride.
And to the all out there, the old persons, most definitely. Remember again, before you even get into the day's diary, around 8 to 9, we'll be doing some aerobics, so definitely stick around for that. Tafuta a whole environment. Even if you're living in a bedsitter, that just doesn't matter. Eka meza kando, sufficient carpet and all that. Prepare for some aerobics between 8 to 9. Fred will be telling you what this particular morning conversation will be. But then speaking of days, for today's diary, this particular month is Cancer Awareness Month. We begin with matters health. And October marks the awareness of various cancers, including breast as well as liver cancer. So this month aims to reflect on trends in cancer research, prevention, and treatment. And Fred, to a particular county that has been having some wrangles, but then today it will be having something interesting here. Cabinet Secretary Trade Moses Kuria will today officiate groundbreaking for Meru County Aggregation and Industrial Park. The project will cost about 500 million shillings, which is to be equally split between the county and national government. So this means the county will provide 250 million Kenyan shillings, while the national government will provide the equal sum of that. And this particular day, we are set to see Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua attending the burial ceremony of Samuel Muthungu, who is a close friend of the Gachagua family in Hiriga home that is in Mathira, that is in Nyeri County. So stick around for that. And in matters sports today, the Kenya volleyball playoffs. So 8 volleyball teams, 4 men and 4 women are set to square it out in the Kenya Volleyball Federation National Men and Women Leagues player for the Kasarani Indoor Gymnasium for the next 3 days. Today is the 2nd day of October, so let's take a look at what happened back then. So a day like today, Edward M. Grigg was appointed as governor of British Kenya on October 2nd, 1925. And today, birthday Friday, is when Mahatma Gandhi was born.
Oh.
Back in the year 1869, at Porbandar, a small town on the western coast of India, which was the one of the many tiny states in Kathiawar. And in Africa, back in 1958, Ahmed Sekou Toure declares independence a few days after a referendum rejected membership in a Franco-African community proposed by then French leader Charles de Gaulle. So basically, Guinea is declared an independent state. That is on today's diary and also today in history. Stick around between 9 to 10 as we give you more county diary updates and also some international updates. Now to our dailies this particular morning. Do quite have a number of them. The local dailies will also be taking a look at Tanzania daily and also Uganda daily and also the East African. But should we start with the Standard?
Yes, let's kick off with the Standard. The Standard this morning has this headline: puzzle over government leaving large. Extraordinary appetite, it says. Economists reacting to the control of budget report say in spite of the cost of living going through the roof, state officials are yet to tame their spending habits, splashing money with wanton abandon on things that can be avoided. The story is on page 4. And they talk about 3.9 billion shillings, the amount government spent on fuel alone in the last 1 year. 30 million shillings, the amount government will spend on a political event to showcase its progress. And a quote there by the president. The tragedy is, not really the president, the economist Patrick Mwinde. The tragedy is that while the executive continues to waste resources, they continue to tell the public to sacrifice and tighten their belts. Yet Kenyans know the pain on payslips and on taxes is going to fund such waste. Quite a sad state of affairs there.
And mostly the fact that this particular weekend, most Kenyans were taking a look at the payslips. So you're probably either smiling or frowning.
Mostly frowning. The other story given prominence on the front page of the Standard this morning: Haiti mission not a walk in the park. Veterans and civil society warn Kenyan police are ill prepared to take on the ruthless gangs in the Caribbean nation. Stories on page 6. In the health and science, highlight there why he became a vasectomy champion. Let's now move to the top strip of the Standard this morning. Kuppet bosses call for a review of educational reports. That's a top strip of the Standard. A business highlight: animal feeds makers in the soup over prices. That story is on page 28. And finally in sports, one blow at a time as practice makes perfect. Stories on page 37. And on the back page of the Standard today, we have a highlight: Kenyan squads ships home the bullion from Riga. Talk about Kenya's squad in the inaugural World Athletics Road Running Championships in Riga, Latvia. Produced a brilliant show to top the medal standings yesterday. The team gave Kenyans a precise Sunday gift as they won 12 medals, 5 gold, 3 silver and 4 bronze, ahead of Ethiopian 7 medals, and the USA with 2 medals.
Makofi kwao.
Definitely, they deserve applause. Yes, and that's the Standard this Monday.
And on the Daily Nation, the big story for them focusing on death on campus. So Daily Nation says college should be a place where students go to acquire knowledge and hone essential life skills. But it's becoming all too common for parents to pick up the bodies and shattered dreams of their children. Why does it happen? Who's at fault? And how can young people get help? Read about this in the Higher Education Pullout and on page 2 of the Daily Nation. They also say gone too soon. They join tertiary institutions full of life and hopeful of a bright future, and then they are found dead. And they have photos there of university students who lost their lives while in the university. Below there, matters sports, something that as a Kenyan will always make you smile when you're taking a look at any front page. Our athletes making us proud out here. It's a field day for 5-star Kenyans in Latvia outing. The Kenya national anthem reverberated 5 times yesterday on the shores of the scenic Daugava River that snakes through Latvian capital Riga and bowls into the Baltic Sea. This was to celebrate Kenyan victories in the men's and women's half-marathon races, alongside the women's 5-kilometer triumph and 2 team titles in the men's and women's half-marathon at the inaugural World Athletics Road Running Championships in Riga. Some more of the stories and more pictures from page 38, 39 and 40. Well, here from Matters Sports, now let's take a look at the top strip of Daily Nation. I'll transform Kibera in 10 years, declares Ruto as he roots for his housing plan, where he was saying Kibera will become an estate. So in 10 years from now, you really have to wait and see on that. But you can take a look at that on page 4 and get to know how that will happen. And it matters health, just aside there, still on the top strip. 6 in 10 Africans living with diabetes not aware of their condition. That is according to a study. That is on page 12. Well, on the back page, that particular, those pictures of that particular marathon road running championships in Riga. That is on Daily Nation this morning.
Let's now move on to the Star. And on the Star today, Kenya among Africa's top 10 cholera nations. WHO says country has 7th largest outbreak in Africa, and it might worsen. The story is on page 4 and 5. Matters health there. The disease has killed 202 Kenyans, according to the latest figures. Talking about an outbreak there. Also featured on the front page of the Star, the Kenyan champions at the World Athletics Championship in Latvia. Kenyans shine there. And a photo of the victorious athletes. Other highlights on the front page of the Star this morning: Maraga team to present report on police reforms to President Ruto this week. Experts come up with plan to end premature births and avert long-term poor health. And Kenyans in diaspora launch 1 billion shilling housing project in Kisumu's upmarket suburb. That's the bottom strip of the Star. On the top strip, that promised by the president will make Kibera slum respectable living space in 10 years, says Ruto. It is a very familiar promise. I think I've heard it before.
Oh, yes. And actually, speaking of promises and President William Ruto, the big story on Business Daily this morning is the rise of big government as Ruto starts second year, and goes on to say big spending on social plans signals heavier tax burden and private business at risk of being crowded out. Other stories making it to the Business Daily. Saudi Arabia posts fastest growth in Kenya diaspora inflows. And on the right side, that ticker there, bus operators primed to save 8,600 Kenya shillings daily fuel cost on electric switch. Basically talking about the whole e-mobility. Goes on to say bus operators are the biggest winners in the switch to electric vehicles. If you like EVs, with the daily savings of up to 8,600 per day, or 66% compared to diesel-powered engines for a 260-kilometer trip amid sky-high fuel prices. But hopefully there will be more charging stations for the same. Matters tourism, 25 new hotels planned as tourism recovers. When you see Matters tourism and planning more hotels, it kicks you that Christmas is here.
Well, if it's 90 days to the end of the year, -5, about 80, 85 days to Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Then you'll start now seeing more Christmas adverts and all this in the next
the Christmas feeling. It usually comes
30 days.
After Mashujaa Day.
Oh, yes.
Which is, this month there are at least 2 holidays. There's the 10th of October, which was Huduma Day.
Yeah.
And then it's one of those holidays that doesn't have a definition. Then we have Mashujaa Day. And after that, it's Christmas.
Oh,
so, yeah, we'll have to wait.
So that the 2 reasons for Kenyans to drink this month. Or just roast?
Why not have chicken instead?
Finally, on Business Daily, banks in race to stabilize SMEs, avert mass defaults. That is, I think, at page 9 there. That's basically it on the life page there. Pull out page 19. An interesting read. Haiti's Compa joins Nairobi's dance floors. That is on Business Daily this morning.
Okay, tuangalie gazeti la Taifa Leo Jumatatu hii. Habari kuu kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo: ndani ya tsunami. Pressure, kinara wa Azimio ajipata katika mawimbi makali ya siasa huku akisubiri matokeo ya kamati ya maridhiano. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Kesi kupinga mazungumzo ziara ya rais, upinzani Azimio ni visiki. Habari nyingine ambayo imepewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo: Kenya ya tamalaki duniani. Bingwa Olimpiki katika marathon Peres Jepchirchir ashinda taji lake la 3 la nusu marathon wakati wa uzinduzi wa riadha za dunia za barabarani jijini Riga, Latvia jana. Alishinda kwa muda wa saa 1 dakika 7 sekunde 25. Mwingine ambaye alishinda jana ni Sebastian Sawe ambaye pia alishinda nusu marathon kule Latvia. Habari zingine zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele ziko pale juu. Mahujaji wa Kenya kuwa 10,000 sasa. Wizara ya Hajj ya Saudi yaongeza idadi hiyo kutoka 4,500 kwa mwaka. Wow. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Kwingineko, Ruto kufuta Kenya ni kampuni. Ruto apanga mbinu za kufifisha tamko la naibu wake lililozua hisia kali ziarani Nyanza. Yes, the president is set for a 4-day tour of the Nyanza region. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Na vidokezo vingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo: Papa ampa jukumu zaidi Askofu Mworia. Atasimamia pia jimbo la Katoliki la Embu mbali na dayosisi yake ya Nyeri. Na kwenye spoti, mtihani mgumu wa Chelsea leo. The Blues inayoshikilia nafasi ya 15 baada ya kushinda mechi moja pekee inazuru vijana wa Fulham leo usiku. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 20. Talking about sports, you know, Chelsea is on page 2 when you're looking at the table. And the other team, I think, on that page, is that where Manu is situated currently? You know, I only see the top 5 teams, and I know Arsenal is among at least the top 3. So I don't know. I struggle sometimes to look for Manchester United. It used to be a great team some time back. Yeah.
Okay.
Very sad indeed.
Okay. You know, Arsenal fans back then, you were feeling what we are feeling right now.
Yeah, you do admit it's a painful feeling where you are.
It is.
You'll feel it for a while though, that pain. So get used to it.
It is. It drains your mental capacity at times.
I feel for you.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the East African now. So the East African still goes with the whole bid for Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania hosting 2027, but it actually now calls it ESC Integration Test. That is on the left strip of the East African. And it says on Wednesday, the CAF president, Patrice Motsepe, announced Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania as the joint host for the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations. While the citizens welcome the good news, the games will test the 3 ESC partners' mettle and might reinvent the bloc. In Kenya, questions are lingering on which particular places are going to actually host this, which cities and which locations are going to be hosting them. Well, from that into matter security now, to leave or not, that is a big story on the East African. Somalia mission left in a flat spin. So troop contributing countries support Mogadishu's quest for pause of ATMIS drawdown, even as they await African Union and UNSC decision. But who will pay the bill? More on that is on page 4 and 5. The story is making it to the East African, just below there. But as you scroll with you, the bottom strip of East African, Tanzania goes for Plan B in SGR project. So officials turn to Sweden, Spain, AFDB. As Turkish contractor derailed, on page 10. And bittersweet side of the Ugandan oil and gas. From dirt paths to new tarmac roads, an airport and new iron roof houses, Hoima, Bulisa, Kikube, Mworia have a story to tell. If you want to read that story on page 25. Real quick on other stories on the East African matters. Money, Alama's port of Mombasa in a spiral. Matters markets, how investors lost 85 billion in AA markets. And on the outlook, Africa new market for spying tech. And there's an opinion there. Swimming in Kampala roads, Bawembo mourns road mess as state officials frolic abroad on page 18. That is on the East African.
Okay. Staying on with the East African vibe, let's cross the borders to Uganda and see what's headlining there. And we take a look at the Daily Monitor. On the front page of the Daily Monitor this Monday, this is Kampala News. How UWA officials ate gorilla billions. This is corruption. A series of documents this newspaper has seen shows a syndicated theft of money by officials in offices and those in the field. More heads expected to roll as purge takes course. That's page 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor. And a picture there of two gentlemen trying to get an elderly lady onto a motorbike. And the ticker said, their day of the elderly, older persons ask government for more. That's the front page of the Daily Monitor today. On the top strip, Congolese star Fally Ipupa takes Uganda by storm. Fally Ipupa was in Kenya the weekend, yeah?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So I think he's doing that East Africa tour. So yes, he's in Uganda and taking Uganda by storm. And that's the front page of the Daily Monitor. Big news in Uganda, how officials ate gorilla billions. Sounds interesting.
Right. But then on Tanzania, not so good news, by the way. Traders count losses in new Kariakoo fire. There's also a Kariakoo market in Kenya. But anyway, it was agony for traders in Kariakoo yet again yesterday after a major fire broke out and razed businesses in the bustling area for the second time in 2 years.
Sounds familiar?
Oh, yes.
What happens in Gikomba?
Yeah. Quite sad. Page 2. And just below there, other stories making it to the Citizen, how local content can stem illicit financial flows. And NMB set to boost diaspora remittances. The bottom scroll there, in blue, cyclists embark on a 1,500-kilometer journey to remember Nyerere. That is Julius Nyerere. And up there, the top strip, UAE's best universities will be in Tanzania. Okay, that is on page 5. Well, more reason to be going to Tanzania now and seeing all this.
Tuangazie gazeti la Mwananchi. Bado tuko Tanzania. Mwananchi, habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi, majanga tena. Moto uliowaka kwa saa 6 wateketeza nyumba, mali za mamilioni kwenye maduka, makazi na eneo la mnada wa vipuri Kariakoo. Talking about that fire at the Kariakoo area. Looks like it was a big deal. Habari kuu kule Tanzania. Vidokezo vingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi, uteuzi wa Jokate waibua damu changa UWT. And I think that lady in green ndio damu changa pale. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 6 wa Mwananchi. Vidokezo vingine, unyanyasaji, rushwa, tatizo kwenye soka la wanawake. Kwingineko, visa na mikasa safari za usiku kwa madereva. I think there's a special feature there on Mwananchi. And on the top strip, Mama Nyerere afichua sababu viongozi wazee kujiweka kando. Hizi ndizo habari zinazopewa kipaumbele kule Tanzania. Jumatatu ya leo, majanga tena, moto huo kwenye makazi na eneo la mnada wa vipuri kule Kariakoo, Tanzania. So let's come back home and take a look at maswala ya karakacha sasa.
Oh, yes. I'm trying to get which page it is for the Standard. I don't know if the Standard doesn't have it today or... But anyway,
no cartoon on the Standard.
I'm actually quite shocked. But anyway, even as we tried and find that on page 15 on Daily Nation, and goes with even one of our highlights, the whole Huduma number, which was to be launched actually this morning by President William Ruto. But then, well, according to the Immigration PS, Julius Bitok, it was postponed due to unavoidable circumstances, and later dates will be set. So there's a gentleman there trying to walk through
The rotating door.
Yes, he's saying new, different, and unique identification.
So one door is Huduma number, kidogo kidogo maisha number, kidogo kidogo national ID card, kidogo kidogo birth registration. What exactly? What is what? Which is which?
And then he keeps rotating round and round in that.
Mm-hmm. I think the Standard today is going with a photo of someone, a fabricator, David Wesonga of J Fabricator, that is workplace. Talking about the demand for metal fabrication products is increasing with the increase in construction activities in Kenya. I mean, the Standard today does not have a cartoon, which is quite unfortunate because I was looking forward to the cartoon on the Standard. So today we don't have any options because we still don't have the People Daily.
Oh, yes.
So we don't have any cartoon. People Daily has not been having editions for the past few days. So now the only cartoon we have today is from the Daily Nation. And it's a rotating door about the Maisha number that was postponed, whose launch was postponed. It was initially set to be launched by President William Ruto in Nakuru this morning. That has since been postponed to a later date, which is yet to be set. Just before we take a break, a quick reminder of the question we're asking today. In your opinion, which government ministry has performed the best so far? In your opinion, which government ministry has performed the best so far? You can continue interacting with us on social media at TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. We'll be sampling your views as we go along with this broadcast. Now, a quick reminder of a panel discussion this morning. Arnold Maliba, public policy analyst, will be in studio. Meshak Odede, political commentator, and Lucy Mworia, governance expert, on State of the Nation. Do stand by for this conversation right after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. We now want to get down to the discussions of the day. In studio this morning, we're privileged to have Lucy Mworia, governance expert, also from the Kenya Pro-Aging Organization, and a politician by her own right. You are a politician, yes, so I'm correct in that. Asante sana, karibu. It's good to have you in studio.
Thank you for the invite.
And also in the studio this morning, a familiar face on this panel, Arnold, Maliba Public Policy Analyst. Karibu sana, Arnold.
Asante.
Now, quite varied headlines today, but very interesting ones, of course, with the government spending that has featured prominently on the Standard today, and we'll be looking at that. Also issues to do with political party funding. And yes, we have 90 registered parties, and the current allocation of 1.48 billion shillings to the parties. The Registrar of Political Parties says it is inadequate. She's asking for more to go to the parties. But before we get to that, because Lucy, you have a special interest when it comes to the elderly people in Kenya. You're from the Kenya Pro-Aging Organization. And yesterday was the World
International Day for the older persons.
International Day.
And you don't call them the elderly.
Yeah. Okay.
They are older persons.
Older persons.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Every day you learn. Older persons. And probably the question would be, do you think that this administration has just done justice to this particular group of people? We know that there's that allocation for that goes straight to the older persons. I do not know if at all this particular administration has done anything better for them.
Thank you very much.
Yes, continue.
Thank you, friend. And yes, the administration hasn't done anything better. And not only this administration, even previous administrations. Well, the administration should start with policy frameworks. In the first place, in Kenya, we do not have even an act of parliament that, protects the elderly in this country. We don't have that. So it starts from there. So it's not there. Nothing much has been done. And there is nowhere you ever hear them talking about the older persons. We talk about other groups like the children, people living with disability, women. Those ones, actually, they're included in the act, but not the older person. So something like yesterday, maybe many people didn't even know there's a day like that in Kenya until we started talking about it and telling people it is there. And there's also World Abuse Awareness Day, which was in June. And that is not also known here in Kenya. That means nothing much has been happening about the older persons as far as the governments have been concerned.
There was that documentary, I think it was on the BBC, that showed a home where the elderly live in Kenya, and there were instances of abuse that were highlighted in that program. How rampant is this in our case? Because even this notion of nyumba ya wazee is not a very common one in Kenya.
It's not. Yeah. The place you're talking about was Dogoto, here in Kikuyu. And that is actually the first home in Kenya for the older persons, which is run by the PCA Church. Yeah, the BBC highlighted that, and investigations are ongoing, because you can't say it is. I also personally visited the place. And I think, like I said, you start with policies. There's nothing that protects the caregiver themselves. The caregivers are not, there's nothing standard about the care they give. They are not trained. We need caregivers who are trained. They are not. So, like what was happening in that home, it's the caregivers were yelling at people who have, according to what we saw, Alzheimer's, the dementia. And this is a disease. Someone could behave in a way that you think they're just trying to behave that way. So if you're not trained as a caregiver, you just mistreat them. And there are a lot of those cases, not just in our home, because they are hosting less than 50 people. And the population of our elderly in this country, by 2019, it was like almost 3 million. I'm sure now it is almost 5 million. So a lot of people don't understand. And the Constitution stipulates very well in Article 57, it is the responsibility of the government and the family to take care of the elderly.
Yes.
and to give reasonable care. So whatever the law, whatever is reasonable care is not even defined. So there is nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, we need the laws first of all.
Arnold, I'll need you to also chime in this conversation, because we may say that the government has not done much, but when it comes to social protection, I think the president has made several proposals. I think if it were to go his way, something like NSSF, the contributions would go much higher. That would definitely go a long way in ensuring that the older citizens or senior citizens are well catered for.
I think we might not really say that entirely. We've not come from a place and we are not going anywhere. Actually, there's been a little bit of movement. There were days where the older people were purely the business of the family. And in places where families were not really working properly, it became a little bit difficult to take care of them. And that is why you found a lot of those people who are what we call delinquents, people really living on the edge of society, who are mostly the older people. But over time, of course, you realize she's even quoted the Constitution, Article 57. You will go to Article 43 as well, and the last bit of Article 43 talks about social security to everybody. This is the vulnerable, both at the dawn and then, of course, at the dusk of life. In between here, there are also ways and provisions that take care of them. So you get a feeling that whereas there's room for improvement, not much has been done. And the older person does not exist in a bubble. He also exists in a society that has got its own challenges. So as we move on in bettering the republic and working out, we also move along with them. One of those things that probably we need to start with is the place of the family. Somehow the family unit has actually disintegrated away from what the government should be doing and everything else. There's this common joke that one woman without a job, just doing odd jobs, could bring up 11 children. Today, those 11 children with jobs cannot take care of their mother.
Or that one woman.
Yeah, just that one woman. They cannot take care of her. They keep on arguing and everything else. But one woman was able to do vibarua and take care of them. So we also need to go back and talk about these issues and encourage each other that the place of the society is not just about bringing up children. It's also ways of looking back and how we look forward, because how we take care of our parents today really reflects on how our children will take care of us, because there are days of vulnerability. So the government is doing what it can do. You realize that we do not have, resources are not finite. There is what goes towards this. A lot of times it delays. The president had actually said that we will be doing as a priority, we will ensure that that works out. But where do we begin? The biggest problem for these people normally is subsistence, how they get to live and get by. So there's that little money that goes by. It's about 2,000 shillings, I think, if I'm not wrong, per month. Not much, but a little bit of reprieve, and also gives them a little bit of dignity that they can get their own money, like having to wait and depend on people. Two, the biggest challenge for me has been health, because for a lot of those people, there's health challenges that come with that age. And initially, even if we say that we haven't done much, initially you remember that insurances could not take on certain age groups. Yes. That we've worked around policy to ensure that we do away with that. So that's working around. And even as we review, the health sector, the National Health Insurance Fund, and try to rework out, the biggest beneficiaries are actually the children and the older people, because the rest of these people in between here, somehow they are quite able, they can get money, some of them are on other insurance schemes. So there's work to be done, that is true. That population is smaller, we can manage it much better if there was a teamwork between the state and the people and even community. You know, just the same way we used to say that children belonged to the society, even elders were actually, and they have got that level, or rather the role they would play in ensuring that the society is much better. Those people are libraries. It's easy to look at them now, have actually in their sunset days not really being productive, but they know some things that we don't know. So it's something we need to work on. There is a need to have a conversation about this. I think the relevant ministry also needs to give a little bit of focus on that, but I would actually propose that we have got an integrated approach to this, where both as a society, as individuals, and then the state on the other side plays out, because there are competing interests when it comes to budgets, and that is how we end up here.
We as a country are so used to this Serikalis idea, expectation. But when it comes to issues of senior citizens, the family should be at the forefront. I'm reading this story on page 7 of the Daily Nation, and it's quoting the wife to the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, Tessie, and she's talking about the increasing number of children abandoning their traditional role of caring for the elderly as they move away from home. Definitely, this calls for more I don't know if you call it concerted effort, but towards the family. But when it comes to issues of family, how do you approach that? Because yes, the government could do a collective, could have a collective effort in terms of social protection. But matters family, how do we even intervene?
Friend, things have changed. The families that you're talking about, they are no longer the families. You know, family is not just your kids, it was extended families. Because of hard times, especially now, they have no jobs. Before, you used to go to school and you get a job so that you can take care of your parents, and maybe you got married and you live with them in your compound. So most of them, they're either abroad. Like now I saw the president talking about jobs abroad. When those children go there, because it's not the older persons who are going there, who takes care of them? And again, the notion of thinking maybe taking care, it's about money. That is not it. We have a lot of challenges that older persons have, including loneliness. And most of them who have been abused in their homes, those who live by themselves. Just yesterday, there was one who was hacked in Muranga. There was an old Musa of 74 who lived with his wife. That's whoever the arks man came and hacked and broke the window, and he was killed. So the question is not just about money. The children we are talking about, they are struggling. Most of them have no jobs. You've sold your land, you've sold your property to educate them so that they can get a job to support you. That's not happening. These children now, they even give birth to their own children. They come with them home. So these parents actually are having very much hard time because things changed. So the urbanization also changed. There are no more villages. The people are migrating to towns. Parents are being left there. Who is that? Who is with them? And then our children think we send money home. You send this money to maybe neighbors. You send it maybe to caregivers who, at the end of the day, most of them mistreat them. You talked about the abuse in the home. How about the real homes? Because those are only less than 50 who are living there. But in real homes, the elderly get abused and they get sodomized, they get raped. By who? By people who are very close to them, like the workers. They have been hacked. You have seen that in the news. People just get killed by the houseboy or the house girl, and that is happening. So that family unit is never there anymore. Before you were sure, when my son gets married, I'll be with the grandchildren here. That's not anymore.
Do you think that we should probably go the way that other countries have, the Western countries, where this home for the elderly idea is what they go for? Because as you said, issues like loneliness, it's not just about money. Who takes care of these young, older people? Once you send money, after that, who takes care of them?
100% support those homes. And of course, in our culture, it's like innovation. We are talking about things that never existed, but now they have to exist. We want it or not. That's how things are. Would I rather have my mother live by herself all the way in Meru and me in Nairobi or elsewhere by herself, or would she rather be in a home where I would call, there's a doctor there, she's eating, someone is taking care of her, and check how she's doing? So that's the question of having homes. I don't think it's anything we need to discuss anymore. It should be part of what we want now in the policies that we want enacted. So we want those homes to be there. It's not a must. Those who have families that can take care of them, it's okay, they can stay home. And maybe we can also come up with the daycare centers where those people socialize during the day and go back to their homes. Those are the kind of things. We don't have to go fully Western, because we also have a culture. We even, maybe even those homes should be built in a way that they look familiar to their regular setups. And maybe my proposal is to have them in every county. So we have 2 sets of government, the national and the county government. Even what are the county governments doing? They should also customize and come up with those homes in their respective counties.
Okay, and allow me to introduce to this discussion Meshak Odede, political commentator. We started off with a very interesting conversation about the elderly. Yesterday was International Day for the older person. Thank you for that. Yeah. And we're just looking at changing times and how we deal with our families, especially older senior citizens. And my director tells me that we have that clip by the BBC on what happened at that home in Dogoto. But before that, I'd like to allow Meshak to also talk about this, because according to statistics, we're looking at an increasing number of children are abandoning the traditional role of caring for the elderly as they move away from home. And we're looking at what kind of interventions, both government and societal, that could work towards remedying this problem.
Thank you, Fred. I personally think we have westernized things too much, and that's the reason why we are here. We are where we are. Some of us happen to have grown up in villages not too long ago, but at that time where children were children of community, where parents were also parents to all children or to the community. And what happened to that? I think we tried to detoxicate ourselves from being African. And so we are living what we also don't understand. We are not fully Western, and we are also not fully African. So we are semi-European and semi-African in everything, including religion. Everything we copy from the other side, and we do. When I grew up, I didn't see those homes around my place until recently. Then people are starting putting up those homes. When I grew up in the village, I don't know the people who grew up in Nairobi and other parts, other urban centers in Kenya, but when I grew up, where I grew up, there was no begging. Like, how could you leave your mother to be on the street begging? I mean, who does that? How could you leave your children to be on the street begging? Or how could you leave a relative, not necessarily a blood mother or a biological father or a biological brother or something like that? But how was it just happening? Because to us, it was a big shame. I don't know whether it is just in Luoland, but to us, it was a big shame that Meshak could be sitting here on TV and one of his aunties are begging somewhere on the street. That was never happening. But then, with time, and now, it's a normal thing. It's normal for your own children to be begging. Like, the mentality, what I say we have westernized ourselves is, the mentality is everyone for himself, God for us all. Those kind of semantics here and there, you put them here and there, and then it begins to make sense, quote unquote, and then we are okay. It's like, I have my life, they have their life. Yes, they are my parents, but they have their life, I have mine. Things like that have made us look somewhere in between Western and African.
Should we go fully Western?
I don't know. I think we should go back to Africa.
It's not possible to actually go fully Western because we are not Western.
Yes.
There are cultural pillars that informed the Western way of doing things. So, and the Western system is not necessarily perfect. It's extremely broken. If you actually have taken time to actually just watch the Western media, see how the elderly are abused. They are importing capacity. A lot of people being lifted from this place to go and take care of the caregivers on that side. That is not a system that is working. You've been, let me just say this, you've been a white person through and through. You probably have been an extremist, a white extremist. And now in your sunset, they are bringing a black person to take care of you. whatever way you look at it, that in and of itself speaks about a broken system. So, but then there's these excuses we've given up ourselves. So I think we confuse a lot going to school for being educated. Nowadays, we really have got these claims, oh, I was abused when I was young, therefore I can't take care of these people. Our greed, our selfishness, and just being mean and petty, we have got ways of explaining it. That when you are unable to take care of your parent, your father or mother, you come up with excuses on how you didn't grow up very well, and how you did this. For me, those are lazy excuses. We cannot be a people who want to run away from responsibility. In the same way, there is a mandatory requirement of people to actually take care of children because they are vulnerable. And if you don't take your children to school today within the framework, that is education policy and legal framework, they can actually arrest you. We should actually move the same to the other people on the other side, because a lot of their sons wanatesa hii town. Weekend wanatesa kabisa kila pahali. And their we're talking about direct parents. We're not talking about the extended family. They are direct. You'll find their mother and father in the village not doing very well. So these things are jokes. And you see, in serious, like, would you do that in Korea, for example? North Korea. You wouldn't do that. Would you pull that in Russia, for example? You wouldn't do that. Even in China, there is a way, there are things you cannot do. Yet we want to take a few things from China. We only take what we like. Just the same way he spoke about we being Christians and not entirely Christians.
Is
a lot of us.
The way it works there, is it because of legislation or
it's
public
because
policy?
Of legislation.
Enforcement.
It's legislation.
Well, there's the place of policy. Like there are so many policies around here. If you went to the villages today, you will be surprised that there are children at home today. And there is an education officer not so far from that particular place. An education office could be less than a kilometer from that place, but there are children at home. What is the problem? It's not a matter of policy or legislation. It is a problem of enforcement. Okay. So from where we are, some of these things really, we actually just need to wake up as a nation and realize that our society is not made up of the prime. Our society is both the vulnerable and even when we get to sunset.
But the question now is, can you really legislate culture? Can you really legislate
it's not culture.
Morals?
Like we said, we are not here, neither there. We are not fully on the Western side. We are not even in our culture. But the laws that guide, even the countries he's talking about, like the US, I've lived there and I've worked there. It is the laws. And when we say their culture is broken, it's not broken. It is like that. That is what it is.
That is their culture.
Yeah, that's their culture. So it's not broken. It's their culture. So our culture, it's being influenced by many other things. I said like urbanization, education, of course. When we did not deal with such things, we lived in the villages. We grew up there. Our families was not your mother and father or your children. It's an extended family. You lived with your uncles around, and everyone knew that this is an older person. And even children, you feared that anyone could discipline them. So, and the care was not entirely on the children. But now, because of that Western influence, it is, and that influence is education, of course, and that we should get a job. When you get employed is when you start taking care of your parents. And then the notion of thinking taking care is about money. It's not. There are more challenges than just money. The children could be partying in towns, but we are busy sending them abroad. Even the most elite people, most of their children are abroad. They are in America, they're in UK, they are wherever. Go to Karen, that's where you find all these lonely people. I'm talking of cases that we know. And loneliness brings along depression, dementia. They are by themselves. Someone is in the US. You say, now I said my parents' money. And that is why in the question of, would you rather have your father alone in Karen or your mother, or in a home where you know they are safe, you can call and check on them. Because even when you hire someone to take care of them, and we said again, these caregivers, they are not trained. You cannot confuse a housemaid or houseboy for a caregiver. Caregiver is supposed to be someone with skills. You can tell this mzee is changing. He wasn't behaving like this last year, today he is behaving like this. These children themselves have not spent time with their father, with their parents, so they don't even understand when these changes are there. And when you come, you're in a hurry, you bring the 2 loaves of bread, you leave money, oh, weekend I spent with my parents. You did not even spend time with them. You didn't even, it's the spending of the time. You can even bring them to Nairobi where you live. Right now, where are you? You are at work. Did you spend time with your dad or your mom? No. So that part of loneliness is where we are saying they would rather be somewhere where there is psychologists, doctors can visit. You are sure they eat breakfast. You are sure they are engaged in some activities. They are not lonely. And that's what happened. It's not that it's a very good thing to do, but now that we can't do it.
Okay, Fred, Meshak.
Fred, I think I want to agree with Maliba on one thing. With time, I think selfishness have come in a big way in Africa, especially in the generation where we live. Because the question in my mind is, my grandmothers and probably some of the era of my mothers took care of 10 children with no job and nothing, probably just the farm, and clearly no paying job, or what we would term well-paying job. And at no point did they ever run away and take these children to a home because now it's difficult and all that. With those 10 children, why is it now a reverse when 10 children are grown? Now they are taking this woman to an elderly home. Now 10 of them cannot take care of the same woman who took care of 10 of them.
But we're already there.
Isn't it not selfish?
But Meshak, we're already there.
She actually had the alternative.
That's what I'm saying. We are already there.
Yeah.
But what is the reason? We can't sugarcoat it and give it many names. It is just supposed to be selfishness, because one woman took care of 10 of us, and now we are all old, married, with children, and we can't take care of one woman. I want to say, I mean, it is possible to take care of your parents, whether you are busy, work. Our president has a mother. Is it not busy? Is William Ruto not a very busy man? Can you imagine how many calls are coming through in a day, through the night? And doesn't he have a parent? Yes, he has a mother.
Okay.
Is he taken to a home because I am now running a whole country and I can't take care of you? It is selfishness.
It's selfishness.
And bad manners, actually.
And bad manners.
To take a break. When we come back, we'll take a look at that BBC documentary, even as we wrap up this conversation and move on to the politics of the day, including the wastage in government. You're watching Morning Cafe. It's time for that break now.
Our investigators found a number of residents seemingly upset by the standard of care offered.
Dawa yes. Na rĩrĩ guka rĩrĩa mũndũ angĩaga piu 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 mbeca cia gũthiĩ thibitarĩ rĩ na nĩ mũrwaru piũ nginya ndareruta harĩa arĩ-rĩ, egwĩkwo atĩa?
Koya kwa kwe.
Wanona mũndũ areketwo akue?
Akuĩte aingĩ.
Nĩ gũkabithia njoko. No gĩtua mpore, no hathiaga atĩrĩrĩ, rĩu ũrĩa ũkaga-rĩ, agĩtua mpore, athiaga agekora. Kario gĩtũraga nginya mũtĩ, tũkahũra, agoka ningĩ rĩu. Ũrĩa angĩgoroka wĩkwo ũngĩgũthwo nginya na iga.
Yes, that documentary by the BBC, an expose of what is happening in one of the homes for the elderly here in Nairobi. And we're still in studio with Lucy Mworia, a politician, but also someone who has this issue deep in her heart. And the concern now, Lucy, is if this is the route that we think we should take. We've already seen the challenges. After this documentary, many Kenyan families would be reluctant to have their parents, older parents, be taken to homes. But is this prevalent in most of the homes we have?
This is not the route that we are suggesting. We are saying it could be one of them. Even the government has one in Kirinyaga, because we have some hotspots in this country where really parents, older persons, are abused. Kirinyaga is one of them, and the government went ahead and put a home there. And how is it even run? How many people are there so far? So the thing is, like I said, the issues that the older persons have, it's not even just a home. Many of them have home. And care is not money. Let us get out of there. Care, they need to talk to people. They need to socialize. Imagine you retire now, you go back to the village yourself, and you are not even used to those people there. You went to work to Nairobi, you come on the weekend with your flashing Mercedes, and you are seen in the village, you are back now, your time has come, you have retired. And our retiring age is actually, who is an older person in Kenya? It is 60 years and above. So you retire, you go back to the village. According to the expectation, you're supposed to retire and go back to the village or wherever you are. When you go there, these people are not used to you. You don't have many friends. You have left your boying group in Nairobi where you used to meet and socialize. Now socializing is not there. What happens, and especially to men, in the next 3 years, actually they just go down. And you've heard this. We've had even Demo talk about it. He was a PS. I've visited him in Kisii, and we have had a conversation with him. These things are hard. Our culture has changed. We cannot just keep on saying the way it was. It is not like that. It was like that. And it is not like that anymore. And we are not going back. You just said the president is not talking about exporting those people to work abroad, right? So if those people, most people, and even in the villages, we are going to the US, we are going to Nairobi, even those ones who are not outside the country, they're actually outside the village. Okay. So who is this family who is taking care of the older person? So we would rather have a home where they can be safe. And we said safety is not even having the caregivers. It's not about that. You can have a caregiver and still they can abuse the older persons. But if there's somewhere where there's a property, where someone can, several people are taking care, doctors can check, something like dementia crops up, because it just develops. I could leave you as my mother in the village, you are okay. The next time I come, you have these symptoms, you have changed, you are wandering around, so I think you are just rude, then I ignore. And what happens? Maybe you are knocked by vehicles, you are taken to a home like that. You see that lady was being beaten there. She was walking to the gate. That lady has dementia. The caregiver doesn't even know it. She thinks the lady is just rude. She's just leaving the compound. So that is where, if they are there, we should have caregivers who understand, and even people who are willing. There are even people who cannot be nurses. There are people who cannot be, caregiver is not for everybody. It's even people with interest. Yeah.
It is a very interesting discussion here. Yeah. Yesterday was the International Day for Older Persons, and we're looking at the Kenyan situation, and it's been noted that quite a number of children have neglected their parents who are now living alone in the homes, in the rural areas especially, with no one to take care of them. Interestingly, you can take part in this conversation as well online on X TV47 News and on Facebook TV47 Kenya. For example, would you send your elderly parents to a home for the elderly people to live there? I would want to get your opinion on that. But I want us to move on to another discussion now, and this is what is highlighted on the front page of the Standard this morning. Puzzle of a government living large. Economists reacting to the control of budget reports say in spite of the cost of living going through the roof, state officials are yet to tame their spending habits, splashing money with wanton abandon on things that can be avoided. 3.9 billion shillings is the amount of the government spent on fuel in the last 1 year alone. And 30 million is the amount government will spend on a political event to showcase its progress, this is according to the Standard. And these are economists talking about this. Some time back, the President's economic advisor, David Ndii, said the same thing, and I think it's part of the story. It says, the government is very wasteful. There is no single day that I'm not irritated by not just how wasteful it is, but also how deliberate and unbothered people in government are in wasting the funds. That was David Ndii. Arnold, let's start with you. The president is asking Kenyans to tighten their belts. Taxation levels have gone to levels that we've not experienced before, yet the government is still living large. I'm not even sure which question to ask here now.
You know, first of all, I know Monday is normally, let's start it on a very rational end. Monday ordinarily is a thin news day. You've been in the media, so you know. So
we are squeezing...
No, normally if you look at the volumes of newspapers on Mondays, they are quite small. So ordinarily, when I was still working as a journalist a long time ago, about a decade ago, we used to call it a thin news day. There's not so much. So that's why you realize that even the headlines don't speak to each other. But then with noise, probably they will be fighting in Meru tomorrow, today, or something like that. So tomorrow headlines will be in sync and there will be a lot of stuff coming up. So you then expect now professional journalism to show up on Monday, where people now get into details, stories that ordinarily wouldn't find space on a normal news day, then find news like this one. So first of all, 3.9 billion shillings spent on fuel for the last 1 year. It's important to actually underscore that government is the single biggest owner of vehicles in this particular country. No one has got more vehicles than the government. It's estimated close to 17 to 19% of all the vehicles that are on the roads today are government vehicles. So that's almost 20%. That out of every about 5 vehicles, you're going to get 0.8 to 0.9 of them should be government or government related. So I'm not so much worried about this particular fuel, looking at the inflation and everything else and the mobility that happens with working, because government is largely logistical. There's too much logistics that comes with government. People are not seated in one place. So there is that. And then of course the 30 million shillings that is spent on any event that government is handling. Again, this could look like it's much higher. But looking at the media that is complaining, you realize they say that they are cutting on advertising, they want to kill this particular economy. There are economies that are dependent on this. If government was consuming this money, and we're talking about government having a tummy and all of this is actually going in, there are businesses, there are individuals who, if these things do not happen, for example, these events and stuff, then people who do event management will not be. And the people they have employed will actually have problems.
So it's necessary wastage?
No, not really. When you talk about wastage, it means it shouldn't be there. But it's these numbers. I know, and we are using red here specifically to actually contradict the situation as it were, plus what government is doing. Okay. When we look at those expenditures, I see they're talking about them being avoidable. It's easy to do things probably online and everything else. How are you going to do public participation online? She is in governance, and he will actually tell you that a lot of online contribution is very difficult to actually qualify. It could be quantitative, quite a number of opinions coming in. But if you sit down as a consultant and you try to actually make sense of that, but if you had about 100 people seated down and you asked them or spoke to them, you get much more better.
Let's use an example, Meshak, because we've seen the president move around the country and spend quite some time outside Nairobi. He was in Mombasa, the coast region, for about 5 days. Then he went to Mount Kenya, about 5 days. Now we understand he'll be going to Nyanza for another 4 days. And what we see is that whenever the president moves there, the entire cabinet and so many other CEOs of parastatals do the same. And you look at the entourage that accompanies the president on any one of these trips, and it's humongous. And if the president's convoy was to pass you on the road and the number of people following him alone, clearly we cannot say that they're all necessary. Do they all have to move with the president that way whenever he attends a funeral or a church service as well?
Fred, the truth is the government is spending and must spend. The question is, in some of these spendings, are they necessary at this time? They may be necessary, but timing. Is it necessary at this time? Because this is a government. The reason why it becomes a real big deal is how this government got into power, and the things they promised and the things they said when they immediately got into power. This is a government who got into power and started shouting that they had nothing in the coffers. Then people see the kind of spending. The controller of budget gives us a report that says completely opposite of a government who found zero in the coffers. Then the things they do to the people are squeezing more taxes. Actually, people now say, out of the taxes, I wish government would take my part and I take the taxes, because it is now 48 against 52, somewhere there. Your pay slip says government should now take more than the one you take home. So people are comparing all this and said, is it commensurate to the statements we had when they got into power? First, when they campaigned and said, for us, we are going to be a different government. For the first time, Kenyans have got a government who cares about how people feel down at the grassroots. Now, the people at the grassroots are hearing the echoes of those statements and listening to the report from the controller of budget and looking at how things are working. For example, today, I don't know whether it is today or tomorrow, Honorable Moses Kuria, for example, is going to launch the industrial park in Meru. Fred, is it really necessary that these industrial parks are launched in pomp and colors, and it is big? Those are the events that take 30 million, including live coverage from the media and all those kind of spending. Then it is a field. Nothing. You are launching idea. Literally, it is an idea. So how about if they went ahead and built the industrial park, and then the day of the launch, tomorrow the park is happening, like businesses are going on, it is now running. Here we are launching the park, and I am sure 1 year, 2 years later, we'll be in Siaya, Homa Bay, Kisii, Migori, where they have launched, and it will still be that field. Probably a few holes have been dug there looking like foundation, and then nothing is going on. And we are saying in the next financial year, we have put a budget to Metenga. Then I will be asking, was it necessary to spend that 30 million then when some people were going hungry? Why wouldn't they just go ahead and build the park? And then by the time they are coming to launch the park, we can see the park, we can see things, and tomorrow I am preparing as a man or a woman who lives around there that I am now beginning business in that park.
Okay. Lucy, the disconnect that the Kenyan feels is the fact that with the kind of statements coming from government and how deep in debt we are, the government should be pushing for austerity measures that they are spending. I remember a point in time when Mwai Kibaki became president, even the kind of vehicles that were being used by senior government officials had to change, at least to show Mwananchi that we are doing it even at this government level. Yeah. The fact that you're pressing Mwananchi to pay more taxes, yet government at the top is not exercising that kind of budgetary concern as well. That miscommunication tells them wananchi something.
Of course, it says a lot. And my brother here says Meshak is not worried about these figures. Actually, for me, I'm frightened. Because when the president is out there and saying that let us tighten, we are tightening, and that's why we are taking these taxes so we can bring our country to the next level. And the flashy events that he's talking about, it's not just even the president who is having an event. We have Musalia with his event, we have the deputy president in another side, and each one, we have Kuria with this another side. They're all over. And they are not like launching buildings or saying today we have employed 400 workers in this industry. Is that we are launching, we have the intention of starting the idea. Surely it does not make sense, not in this economy, when the older persons are dying without medication, when they wanalala bila chakula. It is like now the farmers in the Rift Valley. They are there. Some of these events, of these things which are being launched, is talking about the fertilizers we give the fertilizer. Okay? And okay, they give the fertilizer is a good thing. Now the farmers have this bump harvest about maize, and no one is giving them an idea of where they are taking them. Our farmers in Rift Valley now, yesterday I saw them on the TV lamenting. They're selling their maize 90 kilos at 3,000 in Uganda and Tanzania. And then our minister also tells us in one of his launchings, we are importing yellow maize. Surely. How is that? What kind of management is that? There's a problem. It is there. Kenyans are hurting. And we better cut this flashy spending.
And government spending probably is an issue of timing as well.
Yeah.
That probably, yes, some of this spending could be necessary, but not at this time. Not when Kenyans are suffering. High cost of living, fuel prices are over the roof. Is this the time when the government should be spending the way it is?
First of all, I do not think that any of these expenditures is necessarily new. And not to be insensitive, it's actually important to point out that this is an optics problem. That when people have got a problem in the village, you don't appear to be throwing a bash. So optics is quite a very elastic thing to look at, because there are those who are looking at the numbers and then preaching it the way they are. We are in Africa where people can express themselves as they want, and on the other side, government must work. What they call here launching an idea, it's not launching an idea, it's groundbreaking. Have you looked at the framework that is establishing those county aggregation? There is a budget set aside for that. Counties are also participating and putting money forth to that particular development. And in this country, when we came up with the Constitution in 2010, it was important that transparency is part and parcel of this thing, so that you don't tell us that we are working in silent. For government, there is no working in silent and surprising people with the results. That's not how government works. At least the framework for the Constitution 2010, that's not how it works. Because before you do anything, there must be public participation through and through. So you can't say that government is going to work secretly and let us just see results. That's not how it works. Those are social media Majitu stories. But for government, if we are doing groundbreaking, and this is groundbreaking not of an idea, we already have got the land. We have got those title deeds. County governments have set aside money. The national government has got a budget to that particular effect. This is groundbreaking. Even in ancient days, when you are building your grass-thatched house, you will slaughter a chicken and call villagers and tell them, we are now building my house. This is my Simba I am building. And now here, these are people who are actually in politics, potential leaders here seated here, telling you that you shouldn't tell the people that we are doing this. How do you, looking at the fact that the county government has already set aside money for that, it's in the budget they passed, even if it's just in a face. If we do these things silently, long time ago we used to have roads. In government paper, there was a budget, it is tarmacked, but in real life it does not exist. We are forgetting very quickly that one of the reasons why we are doing things publicly is because there were days where we had hospitals built on paper, on budget and everything else, but it didn't exist. So as Meshak talks about next year, and he's looking forward to a time when he will actually go and see halls and things like that, that is because Moses Kuria went there in person, and then now you can call back and say, this is what you launched and it's not there. Imagine if it was done chini ya maji, that you work in silent and then let the results defend you. That is not how governments work. So it's an optics problem. But completely dismissing the idea that people have to go out there and tell Kenyans this is what we're doing. When government is silent, these very people will be here telling you, what are they doing? things are falling apart. They are not even talking to people. If the president doesn't move around, and also even just sell hope, let's just start. I know hope is not a strategy, but even selling hope itself, telling people we are on the controls. I've seen her talk about the maize problem. It is a good problem. There was a time where there was no maize. People were even given allocation letters, or rather to go and bring in tax-free maize, and it wasn't available in the market. Now we have that. This is a good problem. We can find ways of going about that. Okay. But at least we have got maize here. It's a fact that fertilizer given, the 4 million bags, has moved us from 32 million bags of maize that we harvested last year to 44 million bags this year. That is a step forward. So we will manage it. Those are marketing efficiencies that can be worked on. Having food, a glut, that is a problem to actually deal with, is much better than having scarcity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then finally...
let's give Meshak an opportunity, because Arnold says it's an issue of optics.
I just want to talk about development communication.
Okay.
You know, there is a lot of, like what the newspapers are doing here, this is a journalistic approach at government communication. So, when we're talking about development communication, and these guys will actually tell you, it's beyond the things that we actually want to hang on here. It's much bigger than that. When the president goes ahead, he gets the feeling on the ground. When we passed the Constitution in 2010, we gave ourselves a participatory government. And a participatory government means that the leader, whether kuna matanga ama kuna furaha, must continuously be in touch with the people. Mm-hmm. And we who sit on TVs here are actually a very small minority.
Isn't that the optics you're talking about?
I'm talking about being with them in also being out there and being plugged in is very, very important. That's how they get that particular.
Yes, Meshak.
Fred, I think this government needs Maliba to speak for them. That's all they are missing. That's the missing link. That's the missing link. But let me say this. By the time Maliba is telling us that we needed, I mean, this constitution has given us participatory approach. Yes, we agree. Public participation and all that kind of things, they are there. By the time Moses Kuria, for example, is going to launch the industrial and aggregation park in Migori, the land is already there, title deeds have been done, the allocation and all that. Don't you think public participation had happened? Because that is not where public participation happens.
Participation do you need it?
It is part and parcel of the process.
So it means the people there are already in sync and are already agreed.
Exactly.
So is it really still necessary to go and throw a 30 million kind of a bash because of the same thing that we had participated in and we have already allocated even a budget to the land and everything is there? That is not still necessary. We will still have the launching again. That's the problem. Because yes, in the village, like he says, we used to slaughter a chicken because we are putting up our small simba. But when we have done it, do we still again call the villagers again put in another bash? No. But here we will see, if it comes to fruition, then we will see another launch. And is it really necessary for President to again still go around and launch the things you and I saw being launched earlier in 2019, 2020 and all that? That is where the wastage comes in. Yes, we need government to be open. Yes, we need government to participate with the people. But I think what is missing is not them throwing bashes. What is missing is clear communication that as a government of the day, this is what we are planning to do tomorrow and the other day. And that is where we now find missing completely. In this government, every CS speaks a different thing. And the president speaks here, the deputy speaks there, Musalia speaks another. And sometimes they are not in sync. But on the ground, we are now being put in pomp and colors, spending 30 million that
probably there's a system of administration that President William Ruto has chosen, that he's a very visible president. He's all over the country, and as Meshak alluded to, sometimes even relaunching already launched projects. But it could be necessary to have a president who's actually that visible, visiting different parts of this country. In comparison, if you look at Mwai Kibaki, who did not for his own reasons,
He delegated.
have that
style
kind of movement across. So don't you think that probably it's his system of administration that is coming with this cost? That you cannot avoid spending much if at all you want to be everywhere in this country?
Actually, friend, this is a problem of governance and management. And my brother was talking about this when you're building Simba. Is when in where I come from, we call people when the house is ready to open the house. No one even tells you. See, we say a chicken when nikitaga mayai moja, kelele mingi kabisa, si ndio? So you talked about these flash events. And actually, most of them, they are not even launching the idea. Thanksgiving, homecoming. What are you thanking? What are you homecoming for? A whole minister, a whole CS. You waste, like over the weekend, the things I've seen. I come from Isiolo and I've seen all these things happening. And they are not necessary. The president can have a better way of working. That's why he has ministers. That's why he has PSs. That's why he have all these offices, the directors. These things that should be done by the ministry quietly. Courier can come by himself on the TV, these times, the hard times, and say, we will be launching something somewhere. That's enough. Kenyans are actually, they are all over media. They are all over social media. They know. They can see Courier saying, I'm going to launch him. He just goes there, account commissioner, maybe the governor or mayor, and they launch because it's just breaking. Why do you need people to fly, to drive all the way from Nairobi to Meru to go and launch, or to wherever he is going to launch? We can have people who are there, help him launch. We have seen events, county commissioner receives guests from maybe higher levels and they do things quietly. Then let us hear now when the industrial parks are ready, we will be very glad to see them being launched. That time, we will know.
Do we have an expensive president because of the style he has adopted? The kind of international travel he does, within the first 2-3 months, he had already traveled to 10 countries. That is in 2022 alone.
2 weeks ago.
This year, he has been to so many countries. Is it
lavish?
Because he has cabinet secretaries who he could actually delegate and send to some of these trips? Do we have an expensive president?
Even the CSS have been going.
Yeah. Fred, it is so easy to govern until you are elected and sit in government. That's why you realize that commentators are actually better players than the people in a team. Yet they wouldn't pass when there is a call-up. A lot of them wouldn't actually pass through even the physicals. This is the point I'm trying to make. Every time, ever since I became an adult, I've actually seen these noises about government lavishly spending and everything else. I have also gotten to a level where I stopped and asked, is it really that when we elect people, like for example, let me give you an example. Since the year 2002, the first demonstration in the street, except for this particular year, where the first demonstration was about, after every election, the first demonstration has always been, by civil society, has been about parliament that is trying to increase its salary. Except for 2022, where we actually had the maandamano by different groups and other stuff, unga prices and everything else. But since 2002, if you go back in record, you'll realize that immediately we did elections in 2002, the first demonstration by civil society was about MPs trying to increase their salaries. The same outside of the fighting in 2007, 2008, the first demonstration in the streets again was about members of parliament trying to increase their salary. We saw the same in 2013, again, outside of the maandamano and everything else. So then you start asking yourselves, Parliament, for example, again, except for this particular Parliament, has had 67% attrition, where 67% go away. But those ones that come in always behaved like the others. So probably we need to also look at these questions, look at these issues broadly. What then necessitates people who initially, when they were out, sounded like they would do differently, but once they get in, they keep on repeating. If you've sat on a board, for example, and I think Meshak is para-government, he works within government. I have also worked there before. And I'll tell you that some of these things you realize are instituted with the laws and the practice that we've given ourselves. And that even if Moses does not go to Meru today, that money will not necessarily end up feeding somebody somewhere. Well, who is actually going, who will not go, who will actually be the people who are going to
pocket it.
I'm just saying, so that money will rather go to business. From where I see it, that business, somebody who's actually doing events, will rather get that money. They have got suppliers, they will pay. That money will trickle down eventually and end up in the economy. Rather, because it's budgeted.
Necessary wastage.
Because it's actually going down there. So when we go around these issues and try to actually portray the president as extravagant, there is the Kenyan foreign policy. Have we given him a scorecard on what he actually has been able to achieve by going around? What are the ratifications we've done? What agreements have we signed? What are the expected results out of it? Because before something comes out of it, somebody must do something. And he is actually doing that. Is he always going to be traveling? Probably no. All presidents, let's look at the US, for example. We love to paint the US, even though the US has only 3 aspects in which they are the best in the world. They are a lot behind on so many things. But in the first year, presidents must go to Europe. They must visit specific places. They must go to places. And then they rationalize and go out there. We are trying to reposition ourselves. Because what does Kenya have? The only thing we have in plenty is the human resource. We have no minerals under the soil. Zero. When we were growing up, 16% of our land was arable. Today it's only 8% because of using urea. A lot of what we have is what we are sending people out there to go and work. We must actually make our foreign policy robust. Some of these things cannot be negotiated by a minister, a PS. Some of these things are at presidential level. And when a president comes in, like for example, I don't know whether all of us can remember what was happening in 1991 and 1992 when Moi became the first president to go to South Africa, African president to visit South Africa. We can also again not repeat the mistakes of old, where Nairobi has been called on the international solidarity. Nairobi has not played so well. When people were fighting for independence, for example, Nairobi was one of those places where we were so pro-Western and quote-unquote very neutral, just selfish people. We didn't help South Africans when they fought. When in 1987 ANC tried to open an office in Nairobi, it was supposed to be the 25th office, we frustrated that. Tanzanians, our poorer neighbors like Uganda and Tanzania, were helping people in Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, helping the independence campaign across Africa. But we in Africa, we were getting very clear. We've also gotten around that. You see the same debate.
25 countries in 9 months? That's what the president has done this year. So 25 countries. It means that's about almost 3 foreign travels every month.
Yeah.
Now, what Maliba is not saying is, and I repeat again, the government needs Maliba. That's the missing link. Because we would not be sitting here to discuss if the government has given us the result of those trips. If the government has given us who were in those trips and how necessary were they in those trips. Because if he says, for example, some of these things cannot be done at the level of a PS, it requires the president. Then why do we still see 4 PSS, 5 PSS, and 6 CSS in the same trip where it cannot be done at their level? But what are they doing there? Because it's a huge cost to carry 4, 5 CSS with you alongside PSS. And when it was seen that they cannot do it, it is you who can do it. And you have a whole state house team who can work with you. You have every other person you need in terms of human resource. That is one. So government needs to tell us, it is our work to question whether it... The reason is, if I have a sick child today, and the child needs 1, 2, 3, 4 to get better, I cannot assume that and say, I am at work because it is this salary that gives us a roof over our head, it is this salary that gives us food at home. I mean, it will still look like an insensitive parent. Your son is very sick and needs care, probably take him to the hospital or do whatever is necessary to be done, and then resume back to work. Even your employer will be worried. Like, you are here behaving as if nothing is wrong, and your son is in this condition. So Kenya is at that state We left COVID, we moved into election. After election, we are now here with all that. And the only thing you can do is tell us, this is necessary, this is necessary. We have to do this. It is not necessary until we are better, then you can leave us home as a well son who is now well, to go back and work and now bring food on the table. Yeah. So what we are questioning is sometimes not necessarily why the president has to go out. Sometimes we are questioning, is it necessary at this time to yes. go the many
when the president tells us we're in so much debt and we need to tighten our belts, then he travels to 35 countries within 1 year. What exactly is he telling us?
Actually, there's a difference between what you want and what you need. The question is, do we need all those travels? He is saying tighten the belt. We are cutting down. We are cutting down the cost. I think a week or 2 weeks ago, there was a time when this country did not have a president, deputy president, and even Musalia. They all traveled at the same time. Was it necessary? Was it necessary? Is it that you cannot just be answering to every call? When things are hard, even in your home, there are things you cut. You say, you know, this time it is so difficult, there are some things we cannot do. You cannot just be invited in by every dick and harry every weekend and you are rushing there because it is a wedding. There is the, sometimes you cut the cost. If someone has a wedding, you say, I'll send the gift. That is cutting a cost. Instead of traveling down for unless it is really something that you need. Our friend here talked about, he's so passionate, Maliba, about the participation because the Constitution says participation. We have our military going to Haiti. It was not discussed in Parliament. Someone just woke up and made a decision and that happened. Where is the participation there? So, you know, there's a kind of dictatorship or like our government, the government that we have currently, it's like part of its manifesto was traveling.
Wow. Yes. Okay, I quote Dr. Patrick Mwinde, who's an economist, Maliba, and he's referring to protests in Ghana ignited by economic hardships there. And he drew parallels and says the government, if it does not make the right adjustments, the economy and the people will get to a breaking point and the equilibrium will have to be restored. If we get to that point, it will be very painful.
Well, you and I have had those VT shows a lot more. That things are going to get to a place and people will go out. True. The problem with this country is that Kenyans do not demonstrate when they are required. And that people will not necessarily just respond to the kind of statements people are making. He's an economist. What are we doing right? Are we talking about what we're doing right? That's why we're talking about development communication before you cut me initially. There is too much negative focus on the negative aspects. No one is talking about, like, for example, the food inflation has gone down. The general inflation has gone down from 9.6 to about 6.2. No one wants to talk about that. We want to talk about these. Now, we've actually pegged the whole story about a possible revolution because of the president has been to 25 countries in 9 months.
Those are just examples. I'm
just saying, but that is what pegs. You see, you are a journalist and you know this thing called an angle. Long time ago, it used to be a slant. A slant used to be, it's for the ease of understanding of our watchers, is that people might be in Uhuru Park, but that is not news. So you have to say a man dies as people meet in Uhuru Park. That is the angle for which you hang on to report that particular event. So in the yellow journalism days, it will be sensational and everything else. We've not really moved away from that. We now no longer call them slants, but we call them angles. So you hang on this, put on this. Of course, he's the head of state. He's the leader of our nation. So we put out this. Have we done an audit on the areas of inefficiency? For example, people will say that parliament is extravagant and everything else. If you were to look at their budget, what is 40 billion against 3.7 trillion? But then you're going to pick up one member of parliament with what they have done and then run with that as a story. That is the danger of a single story. Again, with what the president has done, what the Standard has not done today has been one thing. And you know, being journalists, they know exactly where he was, what he was doing, and they can actually give you the weight. But if you give people a general story like this, then we run with the narratives like what we see here. It's okay, we are in a free country. People are free to say whatever they want. But the point is that then like he said, I think government has got the obligation to communicate better and let people, because I also know that a lot of people do not know what the president is doing out there. That is the truth. They just see in the news that he's somewhere. They do not have the time to actually go deeper and look at these things. So I think that also on the other side of government, 100% they need to communicate better so that we also know. Because we do not think, from where I sit, I don't think William Ruto is insensitive. I do not think William Ruto is a person who is detached from reality.
Opportunities where probably he could have cut costs, send 35 trips, even for, in 1 year, even for a president, it's a bit too much.
For a newly elected president, in a situation like ours, with the kind of political situation at home, he probably could have traveled more. Again, I've seen the argument here that when things are bad at home, you don't leave. My friend, if your children do not have food, if you stay there, you're staying there with them so that all of you die together. You go out there, look for food and bring to your children. All birds have taught us that way. Even insects do that. They go out, catch a worm, bring it home. Otherwise, if we're going to talk about now things are so bad at home, let us stay at home. So we want to die in solidarity. What kind of fellowship in death is that?
So the goodies that he's bringing, but we are...
Have we had, what food did he bring?
A lot of those things.
No, let me...
I'm talking about communicate the results.
Maliba is just trying to be a good communicator. We are not saying things are bad at home. I'm saying your son is sick. That is different from
and you don't
there
have
is
money.
No food.
And you don't have money to take him to the hospital.
Yes, so you would rather,
you stay there.
So you would rather take the son to the hospital and plead with the doctor to do something or leave the son at the hands of a doctor while you're going for the money.
Go to a neighbor.
That is different from when
going
we don't
to a
have
neighbor,
food.
Go to a neighbor and tell the neighbor, I have left my son, he's unwell, please give me something.
Safety first.
No, you
safety
do
first.
safety first.
You take
so
your son to the hospital. Yes.
If we leave this studio and God forbid I am in an accident, you don't leave me
you go and
on the
look
road
for a doctor to
go
bring
and
him
look for a doctor. You do the first aid, what you can do first.
Safety
and
first.
Then you find a way of giving me the help. But let me say this. Maliba says the journalists probably have focused more on the negative. And I want to accept, because we are looking for perfection. And perfection is not when there is nothing more to add. It is when there is nothing else to remove. That is when we get closer to perfection. So what we are doing here is trying to ensure that there is nothing more to remove. But we know there is so much to add. So what you are trying to tell us we should do is focus on what else to add and leave alone what should be removed. We will never get perfect at that point. So once we are sure that inside here there is nothing else to remove, we are okay with what is inside, then we can now go out and say we want now to add more, because we will get better that way. But if we are going out to add more to what is already having a problem inside, we are not going there. So Maliba, the journalist must focus on the negatives so that we do away with all the negatives inside. Then we can now say inside we are okay as a country. So what do we go out there to add more onto the good things that we already have? Not when we have such bad things inside.
Fred, just a moment, kindly. You know, when you use terms like perfection, those only exist in utopia. Because in society, you cannot have superlatives. You can only end up with comparatives. That's why we talk about a better union, a better country, better service provision. You can never have best. Because in real life, having a superlative like best, honestly, that is a utopia term. So you cannot have things like perfect and everything else. But then also in community and society, you have to talk about balance, right? So even as he looks at perfection, and he is free to actually expect that, can we also have a balance between what we expect, what is being done? No one says that the government is getting it 100%. But also, if we are going to sell destitution to the people, if we are going to tell people that it's all bad and it's all hopeless, even those who are doing something for themselves will then stop and start mourning. We cannot be a nation of lamenters. As in, we wake up in the morning and turn this particular panel into the book of lamentations? No. We cannot be...
Fred, just a second.
Government tells us that when you're in a hole, the best thing to do is to stop digging.
Like you stop lamenting.
No. But it actually, they're digging further.
Yes, actually we cannot stop lamenting when there is a need to lament. And the journalists, actually, they are doing well because they are highlighting what people need to know. Information is power. So we cannot just you have a wood, and instead of putting medication first, clean it, you wrap it the way it is, just to show that you have a bandage. You need to clean it, and then you put the medication, and then you wrap it. So there's nothing wrong with highlighting and actually most of us know what it is. It's not even the journalists. Maybe you got this even from people. Some of them, they are economists who are telling you. You do not just come up with figures and put them here. So life is hard. Things are very difficult. We need to
But not for government.
Not for government.
The government is struggling.
It's even actually not even. It's even enlarging. It's continuing to be larger and larger. New appointments every day, and every appointment comes with its own things. Like you said, Kibaki time. We never even saw Kibaki anywhere, but it was quiet, but the work was being seen. When he said we are launching Thika Road, we come and see the road being launched. We didn't see here him saying that we are about to start Thika Road, so be tighten your belt.
I used to live in Mathare, so I saw.
Yes, so we need to see the work done. We need to stop just talking. We need to stop empty promises, giving people empty hopes, and we also have government which is contradicting itself. This is all a governance issue. We should be, each one of them should be knowing their role. We hear our DP all the time talking, this government is for the stakeholders. This government is for the stakeholders. Yesterday, the president said that is not what it is. Surely now, who is telling who what to do?
Let me ask Maliba, what would you report if you were in our shoes and the president was telling us that we inherited a country, depleted country with a depleted coffers, like there is nothing. Then, in 1 year or less than 1 year, 9 months, you understand they have surpassed the budget of State House. The budget that another president was using for a whole, and his deputy were using
they even need more
for a whole year,
yeah.
He has surpassed. What do you want journalists to report that is positive? Number one, that is just one. How do you want the same president telling you this is the state of things and it is so bad, the other government did 1, 2, 3 that was so bad and led the country into the hole, appointing 50 CASs in a space where the other government had 20-something CASs. How do you, as a good journalist, want to report that in a positive way that makes us go, yay, this is really great? I mean, that is where we are. And so, whose work is it now to tell us the positives? Because from where we sit as common mwananchi, that's what we see. How do you want me to see positive in a VAT that is now supposed to run from 16 to 18%? How do you want me to see or go here celebrating a fuel which during the campaign, the president says, it is not the other side of the world. Yes. It is here in the Ministry of Energy. And then 1 year, he has not told us who are those cartels in the Ministry of Energy, because it has now gone double. Yeah. And things have gone even worse in terms of prices. He is the president who stood and told us, the people of Manga, these people are insensitive and they don't know what you are feeling. Now we got a man who knows what we are feeling, and the fuel has risen from 130-something, 160 to now 200 plus. And you want me to go here celebrating that this president knows my pain for sure. Okay. How?
Can I answer?
Yes.
First of all, if you torture data long enough, it will confess to anything you want. You heard Meshak here speak about 48% of the salaries. Yet, I'll tell you this, that no statutory deductions go beyond 30%. That is the absolute truth. I'm talking about statutory deductions. And 97% of Kenyans earn 100,000 and below, which means the maximum you can actually deduct them is 26%. That is the roof. There are guys who are below 25, the band below that, have got much, much lesser. It should be about 16 and in its entirety. So when you see people banding around figures and running around with it, if you are going to, like I've said, you torture data long enough, it will confess to whatever you want. So when I talk about how we report these budgets, I'll give you a quick example. The other day, KQ announced an outcome. And one part decided to talk about it being positive. You remember that? And people were asking, is it a profit? Is it a loss? There was the loss and the end of it. You know, there are so many ways you look at data and how you report these things. I am not asking for positive news. I'm asking for a balanced story. Because ordinarily, as human beings, we have got two sides of the hand. Well, there's the third one, this side, but we never talk about it unless you're playing karate. So there's this side, the good side, and then there's this side, which John Cena loves to show, like, can you see me, can you see me? The media cannot be doing this John Cena thing every time, can you see me, after like pushing this story, as in you've mangusha serikali chini, then you're like, can you see me? The point I'm asking, can we have a balanced story? So that when you talk about what they have spent, are you talking about what were they doing? So that people, in their own way, remember that a lot of these Kenyans will not even read this newspaper. There are headlines that are going around, and a little bit of screenshots. That is everything they are going to look at, and that is how it informs how they think. So when he speaks about, and I agree, government has to do better communication. It's not for journalists to actually go out and carry that particular burden. But it's also important to point out to the media that whereas they have got the monopoly of the public, that's the truth, that they have the monopoly of the public, that they should also remember that we have got a country. A lot of times, and I'll give you an example, as we headed into elections, there was a section of the media that really pushed the narrative that the country was headed in the bad direction. They pushed that, polarized the nation. And once we go to the edge of sanity and we were just about to trip off, the same media then turned very fast and said, let us save our country. You cannot be the person that is cheering people to fight and immediately have punched this Meshak here and he's bleeding. You're saying like, you people should behave. Yet you participated in the process of ensuring that you precipitated the situation. Okay. So Meshak, this is what I'm saying. That every time, if we are going to run with the headlines, you know, these are the clickbaits of olden days.
As you give your final comments as well, because we're out of time.
So this clickbaiting here, where you look at this particular story, and when you go in, you realize that people have just picked a select, of course, and we are human beings. We all have got biases, we have got prejudices, and we've got privileges and how we look at things. So no one says that it is bad to go the way we are doing this way, but I'm just saying that let us also give the country an opportunity of a balanced story. So that when we talk about the president having gone out, what did he go to do? If it was necessary, have they been given an opportunity to respond? Two, when you speak about 3.9 billion shillings having spent by government on fuel, you're also forgetting that fuel has actually, the prices has gone higher. And the government has no well of its own. It doesn't get oil from elsewhere. It still gets it from the same market that the rest of us get. So, and then this is a new government. He spoke about what they have done and everything else. When a new government comes in, and I want Meshak to actually tell me that when government organization is happening, that there is no need for, there's a reason why we give a mandate to a president and allow him to do what? To organize government the way he wants, so that he doesn't give us the excuse that I found so and so, this is the way he was doing things, I couldn't work with his system. So we allow them to organize government. If this expenditure reflects in the next financial year, then there should be questions. But here so is a person.
You agree the expenditure is a bit on the higher side?
Because this is a new government. When it's a new government, when a new administration is organizing, William Ruto is organizing Kenya to look like the way he wants, so that then he can deliver on his plan. Okay. So in the first year, you definitely are going to have
because
this.
Of time,
so I would like to actually finish. This is October. We are in a new month. I just want to tell Kenyans that we've relatively done well from where we've come from. It's true that when this administration came in, and these are numbers that are out there, normally gazetted every day. For example, in the last 2 months, we've been spending, out of every 10 shillings, we've been spending 8 shillings and 40 cents of all the money we collect to pay debt. How then is government supposed to run and remain afloat? It has to borrow. So the truth is that we have to tighten our belt. Things are not good. And the government is not perfect, just like you as individuals are not perfect. But if we are going to actually concentrate on bringing down the establishment that is the administration, then we are going to have 5 years of lamentation and not doing well. We will never break this cycle. Okay. So put them to account, but also look at how things are working.
Okay. Yeah. Lucy, final comment?
My final comment is we need the Senior Citizen Act in the Parliament. The government can do that even through the ministers. Those are the things they're supposed to be doing. The older persons are suffering. They are the ones who are suffering when now it trickles to getting, when the petrol goes up, It's them who are traveling by matatus. It's them who are buying the unga. It's them who are the farmers in the Rift Valley. It's the older persons that are not the young people. It's them now who are selling their maize at throwaway price. These people are suffering. So we need those laws in place. It's them whose pensions they can't get. It's them who it's very difficult, especially in the county governments, to get their service gratuity. Your service gratuity, you're supposed to get it immediately you leave the work. But if you go to these counties, I've worked there before and I know, you take years to get your service gratuity, which is supposed to help you take off. So when these people retire, when these people leave their job, they're out there begging for their service gratuity from the government. They are out there begging for their pensions. They are the same persons who do not have the card for NHIF cards, they do not have. They were talking of HSC, and now it is not even there. They are the people who are hurting in the hospitals. We need care for the elderly people. We need departments that take care of them in the hospital. We need a lane that says this is for the older persons, especially because they keep on now rallying on the same lines and nothing special. They have diseases that are well known, like like diabetes. This is something that medication is known already. If someone is diabetic, they should even have farmers where they come and collect their medication. Some counties like Muranga tried that and it worked, although it was never a policy. If it's not a policy, we will keep on now carrying it forward. Because if the policies were there in the previous government, we will be having our older person taken care of somewhere. So we need the policies. Our elderly are suffering. We need to have policies, and our government, I mean our parliamentarians. The other day I talked to Dr. Ekuru Okot. We just said, he told me that we just have parliament buildings, but you do not have parliamentarians. When do we hear them talking about these laws concerning the people like the elderly people?
Thank you, Lucy.
Yes.
Finally, Meshak.
Yeah, I think, Fred, I want to say that Kenyans are not wrong in doing what they're doing. When Kibaki came into power in 2002, people were able to measure his promises and his team versus what was happening in the first 1 year or immediately they took power. This has been a tradition, and that is what Kenyans are doing right now. So nobody is so much pushing on the negative as Maliba would want to make it look like. When they promised us 3 things, free education, and they promised us zero tolerance to corruption, and they promised economic recovery. Immediately they were in power, we saw Kenyans and the aspirations against corruption happening, and the Kenyans wanted to support Kibaki and the team even to the level of arresting police themselves, because the government of the day was moving towards agenda of zero tolerance to corruption. Here we have a government who is completely opposite everything they promised. So how do you want us to praise that government? When Kibaki came into power and they promised it is free primary education, it was election in December and the schools were opening in January, and the free primary education was happening despite 24 years when people said the other administration had mismanaged the country and the country did not have money and all that. Despite all that, people were still in school and the free primary education agenda was still happening. Here we have a government 1 year, the controller of budget is telling us they want to spend, or rather they have spent 15 billion outside the budget. For God's sake, how do you want us to be positive on that? Even if you are the government spokesperson. It is not possible. We have a government who is 1 year into power, and they promise not to borrow, and they have borrowed 1.5 trillion, for God's sake.
He is torturing
it is
numbers.
never positive.
He will end up with whatever he wants.
Political commentator.